Good morning. Paul Millen's my name. I'm the New Zealand Dryland Forest Initiative Project Manager, and I'm a member of the Specialty Wood Products Technical Steering Team. This morning I'm going to share with you work we're doing on regional strategies for specialty wood product species. It's useful to have a historic perspective, as it's 40 years ago that the New Zealand Forest Service released its exotic special purpose species policy. This was a strategy for local supply of special purpose timbers to meet domestic needs for end users for which radiata pine may not be suitable. Native timber supply was declining and the availability of imported timbers was also expected to reduce. There's a range of uses identified. The particular importance were wood properties where higher standards in decorative features, dimensional stability and surface hardness were required. The New Zealand Farm Forestry Association took up the policy, as Neil Barr, the president, was a pioneer of alternative species, and the policy was also supported by the Forest Research Institute scientists known as the Special Purpose Species Group. The legacy of that policy over thousands of mature small stands of alternative species planted throughout the 1980s and 90s by both farm forest growers, corporate forest growers and farm foresters. The National Exotic Forest Description in 2019 estimated there's actually 67,000 hectares of alternative species across New Zealand. The key species included in the policy were the cypresses, macrocarpa and lusitanica. There's a number of eucalypts, redmans, fastigata, delicatensis, Saligna and botryoides, as well as Australian blackwood and black walnut, which were of keen interest to the late Ian Nicholas. Nightens was added to the policy at a later date. If you consider the market opportunity that was identified by the 1981 policy, if you look at that today, it's definitely developed. I'm not going to take you through this table, but there are some key areas, key product areas that we've done some assessments of the market opportunity. Of particular interest is the domestic substitution of CCA treated sawn timber using naturally durable products in its place. This is of significant scale for both sawn timber and posts and poles. There still is the need to substitute the high value hardwood and softwood imports, which haven't declined and nor has their availability. And you can see they've been substantial. We also think there's a great export market opportunity for New Zealand to produce specialty wood products that can be sustainably certified in the market. And we also want to see the use of these species in engineered wood products, particularly high stiffness hardwood veneer that could allow for building taller and stronger buildings. So since 2015, the SWP R&D program is focused on developing New Zealand's opportunity to produce exotic specialty wood products from the maturing resource. The work has included a pilot project to have a look at actually how much wood could there be in New Zealand, and so a methodology to do a New Zealand-wide survey and inventory is under development. As a first step in the pilot program, two tasks were undertaken. The Marlborough Research Centre obtained data and maps for alternative species resource from corporate forest owners in Hawke's Bay with a total of 914 hectares mapped. And the School of Forestry identified and quantified the area of alternative species held by small-scale owners using multispectral Sentinel imagery and Google Earth imagery. When you combine the mapping and show it across the region, this is what you see. there's a total of 4,480 hectares, but it's scattered across the entire region. It would be difficult for any harvesting contractor and wood processor to decide where would they focus so as to find a resource in order to get logs to process to get wood products to market. A key conclusion for us from this is it's best to cluster future planting to achieve scale, and this has become a key focus of our strategic work. Let's also look at the specialty wood product supply chain. I'm going to quickly run you through it. You'll see that there's a lot of steps involved in getting a wood product supply chain going. I'm not going to take you through them. I'm just going to click on, and you'll see that as we get from seedlings to forest to harvesting and transport to processing, in order to get the products that we've identified to the markets, that it's a long supply chain, and it takes a lot of people and a long time for that supply chain to develop. So that's another significant challenge. However, despite this, we think New Zealand has opportunities to plant more forest, to produce specialty wood products. They do all have the same challenge of developing a sustainable supply chain, and they need to attract investment in new planting and R&D, and a strategy and leadership is going to be needed for building industry capability in markets. We've been working on these strategies and have completed one for the NZDFI. It's a multi-regional durable eucalypt hardwood strategy. We've done some work looking at the Douglas fir resource, and there's potential for greater utilisation in New Zealand of this resource. We're under development with a cypress strategy that involves the Farm Forestry Association, Cypress Development Group, and others in industry who are interested in this species. And we've started work on a small-scale sawmilling industry strategy with a survey completed, and we have a next stage plan to engage further with the industry. A quick look at the NZDFI strategy. The map here shows the overview of our goal for 12 wood supply catchments to be planted by 2050 throughout New Zealand. The catchments are focused on a future industrial site for sawmilling or hardwood processing of around 5 hectares. And we've used an indicative catchment boundary of 40 kilometres radius around that site to demonstrate the catchment concept. All of the locations have good rail, road and port connections for log supply and to transport hardwood products. So this is the focus that we think is needed. If you look at the type of sawmill that could operate if these wood supply catchments can be planted, this is an Australian example I visited in 2009, owned by Borrell, sawing up, in this case, old growth and regrowth eucalypt, ironbark, stringy barks and spotted gum into a range of wood products that are shown in the photos here. This type of mill could employ up to 50 people, and alongside a processing site could generate significant GDP into a local region. Here's a more detailed land use analysis that we undertook around Wairoa as one of the focus areas. This work was based on work we did with Sion, Peter Hall, looked at technical analysis of the size of mill that could be suitable, and we've done the analysis of the area of land. And if you just look at the land use classification, 6 and 7 land and existing plantation land, there's 235,000 hectares, and with only 5,000 hectares being planted at 170 hectares a year, the area of proposed forest to support the mill is only 2.1% within that 40-kilometre wood supply catchment. If this was achieved, the direct employment created could be substantial, particularly once the sawmilling's underway and if remanufacturing can be included on the site. And we can see that the annual estimate from work by Peter Hall suggests a contribution to regional GDP of 82.5 million, with a return on capital employed of 25%. The national opportunity this presents is a target of 60,000 hectares being planted by 2050, so that all 12 wood supply catchments can have a future hardwood processing business, with a 360,000 cubic metres of hardwood lumber and a contribution to GDP of around $1 billion. There's a lot of future employment possible as well. The NZDFI want to make this happen, and we've had a 1 billion trees partnership grant to accelerate the production of our improved planting stock, with our two priority species being Eucalyptus persistioana and global deer. First generation of over 250,000 genetically improved nursery stock will be planted this year, and the seed production clonal work is being led by ProSeed at their North Canterbury site, an NZDFI partner. A few comments on other species, specialty species outside of the SWP. There's redwoods, and planting started, and significant planting started in New Zealand in 2001, led by the US-owned New Zealand Redwood Company. There's been forest first planted in North Canterbury and the Rangitikei district, but the focus in the last 10 years has been on new forests in the Taumarunui district, with the company strategy to have enough forest to supply a future sawmill. I think there's something like 20,000 hectares of redwoods now planted in New Zealand. Tasmanian blackwood, or could we call it all blackwood? There is a small resource that was planted by some keen farm foresters that's been well managed. The largest resource on the South Island's west coast is owned by Ngāi Tahu, although that may have changed recently, I understand. There's also poplar being talked about and what could be done with the widespread farm woodland resource that's throughout much of the hill country of many regions of New Zealand. And not to forget the native forests that still produce specialty wood products. Harvesting still continues from these, small-scale harvesting, with 140 plus sawmillers licensed to do this. The Northland Tofara Working Group have a strategy that they're hoping to extend to other regions based on the regenerating resource. And more recently, Te Uraraka, New Zealand Forest Service, have announced they're developing a national strategy on new native forest plantations. The key thing, I think, with new native forest plantations is regional seed collection and propagation programs are needed. Anyway, I'm going to finish there. There's an excellent team of dedicated people that support the NZDFI that I want to acknowledge and thank for their input. So hopefully that's been of interest to you, and I look forward to taking any questions.